Alright, so for today's class, what we're going to do is take what we've been doing so far, which is mostly just building augmented sixths in the abstract without much talk about what precedes those chords, and so we'll be kind of putting them in context of a few voice leading examples. And then we'll also be looking at actual examples of them in real works today and how they are approached and how they resolve. But one thing we have gone over is what these chords are in terms of their voice leading tendencies for how they resolve to 5 chords, which is what they do most of the time. And we've also talked about how they're constructed in terms of that augmented sixth interval, hence the +6, and then the other scale degrees that are involved with these chords. And in terms of the scale degrees, like the flat 6, which is usually in the bass, the sharp 4, which is in one of the upper voices, and then the inner voices, this discussion of scale degrees pertains to when they resolve to a 5 chord. But like we mentioned earlier, they might also resolve to other scale degrees besides the dominant. So we will investigate those later. For now, these are all resolving to 5. And then at the end of class, I'll go over one of the examples that's in your assignment up there, before I let you start working on that one on your own. Let's get reoriented with these augmented sixths real quickly by spelling just a few in the abstract before we start doing voice leading rules with them. And let's return to, let's say, a pretty friendly key of C minor. And what I would like you to do is help me construct a French augmented sixth chord. So first thing is, what is typically going to lie in the bass? What scale degree? Yeah, flat 6. So we'll put it here. Flat 6 as in, you know, already lowered 6th, lay in the minor key here. What else do you essentially need? Sharp 4. We'll put it up here for now. What else does every single augmented sixth chord have, whether it's Italian, French, or German? Tonic. Let's put it here. And then finally, it's just the one thing the French has that all the other chords don't. 2. Scale degree 2. Okay. Excellent. And then, as usual, we'll resolve this to 5. So what are the things that have to happen right away, the really strong tendency tones?
Lay, sol.
Yeah, lay to sol, and fi to sol. That's the augmented sixth that wants to stretch outward. And then do you have any common tones? We're always looking for common tones. Yes. And then finally, what would your tenor voice do right there?
The B flat.
B flat would produce a harmony that sounds like this. If I put them all together, this is what we're getting so far. We're just missing something in that 5 chord. Yeah, we just need to remember the to raise the leading tone. And now we have a real nice progression. To resolve back to tonic of C. Okay, so we've been doing C minor a bit. Let's change it up and go to a different key. How about this one? And let's say that we're also going to switch up modes. So what major key does this infer?
G.
Excellent. Good. And then let's do a German one here. And as per usual, we'll go ahead and resolve it to 5. So what should I probably put in the bass here? E flat. Right. Let's go ahead and put it right here, say. And I need to put a flat in front of it. And that is in fact, yeah, flat scale degree 6. Good. What else do I absolutely need here? C sharp. Good. Okay. Then there are 2 other things. Again, every single augmented 6 chord has this somewhere in it.
Tonic.
Yeah, the tonic. Good. I'll go ahead and I will put it right here. And then lastly here is what else? What are the scale degrees? You need flat 3, right? So I'll go ahead and I'll put it, how about we'll switch it up. I'll put the G here and the B flat, and then things get a little clearer and easier to see. So if we're going to resolve this to 5, then there are a couple of things that we absolutely need to have happen, like flat 6 does what? Yeah, it goes down. Here, let me get rid of this. Move this a little lower. And sharp 4, Phi,
Goes up.
goes to sol. Yeah, it's going to be an outward wedge as long as you have that flat 6 in the bass here. This moving down, outward together. Do you have then any common tones with the 5 chord? No, looks like it's not going to work out, but that's okay. We'll just move as smoothly as we can to resolve this chord. What would you do with your alto? What's the smoothest resolution you can think of there?
F.
Yeah, F sharp.
Yeah.
And then flat 3. Where would that usually tend to go anyway?
Not right.
Yeah, down to Re. Excellent. So we've resolved our German augmented 6 to 5. Do you see any voice leading problems here? You do wind up with some parallel fifths though, as we discussed last time. And good. So where exactly do those parallel fifths lie?
Bass and the tenor.
Yeah, the bass and the tenor. So you have E flat to B flat, perfect fifth, D to A, perfect fifth. It's a problematic perfect fifth, and it's going to pop up anytime you resolve a German augmented 6 directly to 5. So there are a few things that composers would do, like put in some suspensions or anticipations to kind of mask them, but what's the other most common way to get rid of the parallel fifths here? Yeah, cadential 6/4 pops up. So let's do that instead. Let's add a cadential 6/4 in here real quickly. All right, so that means that instead of these 2 notes showing up in here, what we're going to do is have the 5/6/4. So I'll leave this in and then this in. But what do I got to change about the B right there? This is G major, right? It has to be B natural. Good. And then what you would normally have is your B natural resolving down to A later on, and G goes to F here. And that way, in effect, we have masked those parallel fifths pretty effectively. There's one other caveat. What do you remember about the last thing I have to change here, Lester?
B flat to A sharp.
Yeah, this is flat 3. And flat 3, as you already know, has a tendency to go back down to Re. And it doesn't do that here. It doesn't look right. So we'll do the inharmonic equivalent and have it here with now sharp 2 going to scale degree 3 there. That makes a lot more sense. Good. Okay. So that's the one caveat there with the 6/5 chord, or aka the German augmented sixth, that it needs to usually resolve to a cadental 6/4 in order to avoid parallel fifths, but that's not the only way to avoid them. Remember too that in the major mode, you've got to have an extra accidental here for your flat 6. Excellent. Okay, so we've gone through a couple of these. Let's together do a voice leading example where you will encounter a augmented sixth chord along the way, but I don't want you to worry just yet about the augmented sixth, about the Roman numerals that go behind this example. Remember, when you see a voice leading excerpt where you have a figured bass here, then it's all about making sure you have the right intervals above the bass as dictated by these numbers, and then just follow tendency tones after that. And of course, avoid problematic parallel fifths in octaves. We did this one together as a group. For this one, let's do it in smaller groups. So can I ask for you to break out some staff paper real quickly? And what I'd like for you to do is just jot down what I have here on the board. So you're going to show the grand staff here with 1 flat in your key signature, and then 2 B flats and 2 A's, and your figured bass numeration there. And then one question before we all get started on this too, is looking at the key signature I've provided, what key do you think we're in? Based on what else you see here with the bass.
D minor.
D minor, okay, good, yeah. Why not F major?
Because it's resolving to 5.
Yeah, it looks like there's a 5 here, especially when you have this sharp, which applies to the 3rd above the bass. Good, okay, so as you're jotting this down real quick, then let's do a few small groups together. I'll have Moigi and Christina, you guys could work together. And then Gloriana, would you mind moving to work with Tiffany real quickly? And then I'll have the 3 of you guys make up one group, and then pairing up as you're back there. Excellent, thanks. All right, so you've got this written down. Then go ahead and get started as you work together. Remember, it's all about intervals above the bass, keeping those common tones as often as you can, moving as smoothly as you can, and then tendency tones, and watching out for problematic parallels. All right, good. All right, so, there you go, sorry.
Was it 4 voice or Joel? Was it 4 voice?
Oh yeah, sorry, this will be a 4 voice one. So you'll have a bass, soprano, bass, tenor, alto, and soprano above. Yes, thank you.
And
right. You guys already have stuff going. How's it going over here? Yeah, no, good. Okay. So you're actually just doing the voices above the bass, and you're gonna worry about accidental. That's fine. Good. Just watch out because you'll have some tendency tones that'll pop up. You know, when you put the flat, the sharp on that one, then it might redirect where you go. But nice. You're good. Good. This looks like it's going really well too.
Why don't we go with that and then we'll work on it.
And so you have
This right
Oh,
the introduction of the bass. Good. Maybe a tenor. So, sorry, wait. It helps if it's not upside down. There you go. Excellent. How's it going so far?
From 7 to 10 p.m. last night.
Good, okay. Sorry, here, I'll kind of.
Yeah. It was also only like 4 questions, but each question.
How's it going so far here? Oh, looks good. Excellent. Also, you have it in an inner voice, which I haven't seen yet, which is totally fine. That, that sharp 4 there doesn't have to be in the soprano, even though a lot of examples we've looked at do. Good. And so there's the 3rd and the 5th and the 6th at the bass. And this all looks really smoothly done here. Good. Excellent. Okay.
I know, I just like
Yeah. Nicely done.
and then you need to go
Good. And so, oh yeah, and good. Also well done with that cadental 6/4. One of the most common things I see actually is when you get to a cadental 6/4 and then folks may not double the bass, and that always leads to problems. So this was really nicely done. And everything is super smooth, and everything that's a tendency tone is working out really well here. Excellent. All right. Cool. Basically done. You guys are done. Yes. Sure. Yeah. No, this looks really good. We're just missing one, actually. Yeah, there's one accidental, so I realized. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I must have been in trouble.
Yeah. No, this could still, this could work really well. So you've got, when you got like a 3rd of the bass again, and then following it through one voice at a time. Could work. And so, yeah, good, okay. Well, yeah, no, this is fine, as long as you just have the intervals above the bass, and then it looks to me like it's really, really smoothly working out. Yeah, no, that you got it. Yeah. Good. Okay. Looks like just we usually one more minute, but it looks like everybody is pretty much done. Yeah, super smoothly done here, and then how to go back here. Yeah.
They don't have to do the enharmonics because
It's already in minor, so the whole enharmonic thing is not going to here. Because you already have flat 3 in that chord. Excellent. All right, so going around the room, it looks like everybody is doing really well with these. One thing I noticed right away is that whenever you're focused on those intervals above the bass and moving as smoothly as you can from one chord to the next, Then also a lot of these parallels, they usually work themselves out pretty much. Of course, you always go back and you check to look for parallel fifths and octaves and everything. But everybody had super smooth voicing from one to the next. So all together, real quickly, one thing we can do as a group is at least looking at what you have in terms of the notes written, make sure we're all on the same page with the harmonies that were here. What did you all have for the first one? In D minor. Roman numeral wise.
4/6.
Yeah, 4/6 chord. Excellent. Good. And then this one, I think you all recognized as an augmented sixth chord because you all notated and resolved it correctly. But which one do you have on your hands here?
German.
This was the German one. Good. And you can see why it got that name, German 6/5, because of this voice leading figure right here. We're just not using the 6/5 figure as much so that we can emphasize its voice leading tendencies and not make it look like some sort of tertian harmony. Even though it is one, but it doesn't have a root, a third, a fifth, and a seventh in the same way. Good, okay, this one then was what?
5/6/4.
Yeah, cadential 6/4, which resolved 5 and 3. And then everybody remembered this 2, which I was happy to see. Good, well done. So all together, this makes for a really, really smooth way to get from your predominant to your dominant here. Every single voice is either going to be a common tone or it's moving by step. It's a real smooth progression. One thing I want to do real quickly before we move on to seeing these examples in context is let's try singing through an excerpt. So can I borrow one of yours that looks like it's really easy to see here? Okay, and let's put this one up on the board. All right. Nicely notated. Okay. And then we zoom out just a bit. All right. So, how many fellow basses do I have in here? Okay, good. Then tenors. Just and you can okay, good. Yeah, and just be loud. And then altos and sopranos. I have 3. Good. Okay, excellent. So here we are in D minor. And as we begin this excerpt, basses will be down here. And then the tenors, altos, and sopranos. Alright, let's give it a shot. I'll give you one measure of cut time and then we'll come in together. Okay. 1, 2. Good. This was really well. The only thing is I think there was a bit of like hesitation on that second chord. So just remember it's probably trickiest for the sopranos that you'll be going up from like fa, fi, sol, right there. Okay, once more. Again, basses, tenors, altos, and sopranos. 1, 2. Excellent, really well done. Nicely done. Okay, so we have notated these, we have talked about their inner properties, and we have seen them in a voice leading excerpt. But one thing we need to look at a bit more is how they actually function in terms of written musical ones, yeah? So, we can get started with your course packet on page 64. And this is the top of page 64 that you're looking at here. And this excerpt is going to be pretty familiar to you. You probably heard it once or twice before. But one thing that you may not have noticed is the placement of an augmented sixth chord here. Now remember, we're still dealing with the traditional ones that resolve with 5. So you can kind of keep an eye out for things like flat 6, sharp 4. And typically, they're going to precede a dominant chord. Just looking at your score real quickly, can you identify where that chord may in fact be taking place?
Second to last measure?
Yeah, second to last measure. There's a sharp there. This is in C minor, so that F sharp is indicative of F sharp 4, and then it resolves up to 5, just like flat 6 is resolving down. But keep in mind, it's C minor. There's no accidental in front of lay. It's just naturally occurring there. All right, good. Let's take a listen to this excerpt real quickly and get a feel for how it sounds. It's interesting because these are such striking sounds in a way. And we've talked about how different they are with that sharp 4. But the fact of the matter is, these are very much just simply linear voice leading phenomena. Flat 6 down, and we had sharp 4 going up. They can be pretty subtle. And I think you may notice that when it occurs here, it might sound like an intense predominant, but it's not exactly the most jarring chord in the world. Let's take a listen. So that was it, you know? And it definitely maybe stands out in terms of being kind of coloristic. But it went by really briefly, and it was just simply sharp 4 moving up to 5, flat 6 going down to 5. Those inner voices skip around a bit, but part of that is due to some of the orchestration here. You just have a piano reduction. Good. Any questions on that one? Which augmented sixth chord do you get? I see A flat in there, F sharp, and I see C.
German.
Sorry?
German?
And if you had a German one, then what you would need is the flat 3, and you don't have one yet.
Italian?
Yeah, so it's just the Italian one, the one with just the 3 unique notes in it. Good. And so that C is doubled, right? Which is what you would expect, right? You can't be doubling the sharp 4, because sharp 4 needs to go up to sol. You can't be doubling flat 6, lay needs to go down. So you'll have parallel octaves otherwise. Okay, then let's skip then to the next one, which is another Schubert excerpt from his Mass. This is the Sanctus, the very beginning of the Sanctus. And then before we get started here, what exact key are we in this moment? I know it says that this is a Mass in G major, but is that the key we're in right now? If you look at your key signature and stuff. Yeah, I'll say we're probably in D major right now. All right, let's take a listen to this one. And remember, you're looking out for things like sharp 4, flat 6, etc. Okay. Oh, sorry. All right, so looking through this excerpt, and you only have the voices here, but do you spot any moment that looks like it could be an augmented 6 chord so far?
Second
Yeah, second measure. It's pretty easy to spot when you know what you're looking for there. That's sharp 4 up in the soprano voice. And then, of course, you have flat 6. And you've got to have that extra accidental there for flat 6 because we're in a major key. So that resolves down, that one resolves up. What kind of augmented 6 chord do you have on your hands though? Italian, French, or German?
Italian.
There's another Italian one, yeah. The only other thing you get going is the tonic, that's doubled there. Okay, so we've identified this. Let's just zoom in real quickly on this passage. Just these first 3 measures here. See as we can get. And in your own words, I'm not looking for any kind of fancy technical or jargon-heavy explanation here, but what kind of motion do you see going on overall in this piece, especially in those outer voices during this passage? So I'll narrow it down. What about the outer voices? What do they really kind of have in common, at least? The soprano and bass.
And moving by half step.
They're moving by half step the entire time. That is as smooth as it gets. And then overall, in terms of some of the contrapuntal terms you learned about, parallel, similar, oblique motion, and contrary motion, what do you have going on here?
Contrary.
Yeah, it's contrary motion. It's moving outwards. So if you were to just isolate those 2 voices, then all you have is basically what appears to be what's called like a wedge being driven here, an outward stretching one. So together, it goes, just the soprano and the bass are. And if we were to look into this passage a bit more, you can still find an underlying predominant, dominant tonics going on here. But it looks like what's also driving this progression, what's driving the whole idea of the tension behind predominance to dominance that must resolve to tonics, is simply this linear motion in the outside that's pushing outward very smoothly, but get some real dissonant intervals in there. For example, what's the interval you start off with between the bass and the soprano? So in the first measure there, the downbeat of the first measure, the bass, C natural, and then the soprano is F sharp. What interval would that spell? Sorry? Yeah, augmented fourth. So basically it's a fourth because it's C up to F and then it's augmented. And that right there is an interval that really wants to push outward to a fifth. But as you see, you don't get a fifth typically. Here you wind up with a sixth. That's actually also pretty typical of some tritones as they push outward. And then you get another dissonant, augmented sixth and B flat up to G sharp, which results out to the octave. So a really great expressive passage that way. We'll listen to this beginning just once more here. So we will go over a few more examples next time that show some less typical resolutions for these chords. But before I let you go, let's take a minute to just go over your homework. It's in your workbook on page 219 through 222. And so take a minute to flip there real quickly. Let's talk about the very first excerpt here. This is the one that's on top of page 219. I'm not having you do number 1, but we can talk about, say, the first measure there. You're in A minor, the very first measure. What kind of chord is that producing? If you know we're going to be looking out for the possibility of augmented sixth chords. So you've got F and the bass, and then up in the other voices there's A, which is tonic, C, which is 3, scale degree 3, and then you have sharp 4, or D sharp. Which augmented sixth chord would that be? Yeah, the key being that flat 3 there. Good. Okay, so you're going to keep an eye out for augmented sixth chords in each of these excerpts, 2, 3, and 4. But you might also come across things like Neapolitan chords. You may come across secondary dominants, so keep an eye out for those. One other thing to tell you about. Number 3 will feature a common chord modulation. It says that it modulates, but it doesn't specify common chord. So you're going to have a common chord modulation in 3. And then finally, number 4. Number 4, just read the directions carefully there, but it does tell you about common chord modulations. Specifically, there are going to be 2 of them in that excerpt. And then I will tell you a couple other things too, is to look out for an extended tonicization in the first system there. We haven't seen those in a while, but there's an extended tonicization. Again, the directions hint at this, but I wanted to be clear. And then finally, there are going to be some chords that are pretty tricky when you get to the second system of page 222. And they could even have some multiple interpretations there. So what I want you to have on hand on Monday is maybe your best guess for this last page. And then we can discuss together some of the different answers that might pop up there. But I wouldn't stress too much about necessarily knowing exactly what's going on there or not. It's a little ambiguous in the second system of 222. All right, so just remember on 219 as well, I just want you to do number 2, not number 1. Also. All right, thank you. I'll see you on